I don't want to tell him. The dad was fine. What's going on?
He needs to talk to you.
Oh, you're right, sweetie. Okay.
Oh my God.
I lost my father when I was young. This is again, I'm hurt now. If anybody knows anything,
Only
maybe a bookers.
No, we've been here all night.
Right now, we're going to reach you, right?
Me?
You know, you like the name Stalking.
This is the story of a woman who refused to become a victim, a woman whose life was nearly stolen by the man who once claimed to love her. It was in the middle of night that police entered the apartment of Valerie McDaniel and discovered that Valerie's former husband had been found dead in his car, a shot to the head with a shotgun. Leon Jacob, Valerie's new boyfriend, supported her during this time, comforting her as she came to terms with the terrible news. His tone was soft, soothing, but behind his cover was a dark and sinister reality. Only 2 hours before, Leon had gotten a series of gruesome photographs on his phone, pictures of his former girlfriend, Meghan Verikas. She was bound to a chair, tears streaming down her face, terror in every line. But Leon wasn't frightened. He thought the police had no idea. He was convinced he was one step ahead, but the reality was the police were ahead of him. It was early 2017. Valerie McDaniel lived in a high-rise condo in River Oaks, an exclusive neighborhood often referred to as the Beverly Hills of Houston, Texas. From her balcony, she could see the city stretch endlessly, a view she had earned through years of dedication to her veterinary practice. She was known for her kindness, generosity, and deep love for animals. Her peers looked up to her, and younger veterinarians regarded her as a role model. However, even though Valerie was professionally successful, her personal life was another matter. She had just ended a painful divorce after learning that her husband, Mac McDaniel, had cheated on her. The infidelity devastated her, and she had to pick up TE pieces while splitting custody of their 6-year-old daughter. The hollowness remained, a space no career success could replace. She had dedicated so long to taking care of her daughter, working, and just managing to get through life. Then, she fell in love with someone who somehow shifted everything, Dr. Leon Jacob. Leon's life had been one of privilege. Childhood had been indulgent. Elite private schools, fancy vacations, ski weekends in the winter, and Maine waterside summers. He had always been ambitious, pursuing a medical degree in the Caribbean with dreams of becoming a transplant surgeon. He exuded confidence, often describing himself as a type A alpha personality male with a heart of gold. When he met Valerie, he showered her with attention, and she quickly fell for him. "I'm completely in love with him," she told her friends.
I'm a very driven type A alpha personality male, but I have a heart of gold.
She was very much in love with him. She said it multiple times. I'm completely in love with him.
Their relationship progressed rapidly. Both had recently broken up with their partners, Valerie with her former husband, Mac, and Leon with his former girlfriend, Meghan Verikas. For Valerie, it was a new beginning. Leon was charismatic, affectionate, and caring. In no time, they were living together. Theirs was the picture-perfect relationship from the outside. But in the confines of their home, a sinister truth was unfolding. On March 10, 2017, at 2:47 a.m. sharp, Valerie and Leon's meticulously built world came crashing down. Police came to their apartment, bringing terrible news.
Sergeant cleared the SPD.
What's going on?
Mac McDaniel was dead. Valerie was heartbroken, trying to understand what had occurred.
Might have been a robbery gone wrong. See if anybody knows anything.
Only
Maybe a bookers.
Okay, baby. We've been here all night.
Leon was not the same. His response was controlled, almost scripted. He pretended to be shocked, acting the part of the supportive boyfriend, but in his mind, he was elsewhere. At that time, Leon was thinking about something else, someone he couldn't forget. A man who, in his own head, had to go away, his ex-girlfriend, Meghan Verikas. He knew that in a matter of hours, Meghan would be reported missing by her friends and relatives. What he didn't realize was that the police had been keeping an eye on him all this time. He had just marched into their trap. Before Valerie met Leon, 1,000 miles away in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Meghan Verikas had no idea that her life was going to spin into a nightmare. She was living the good life, establishing a thriving career as the assistant general manager of a busy downtown hotel. Smart, diligent, and down to earth, Meghan had it all. She was ambitious, well-liked, and blessed with a loving family. Her friends said she was magnetic, someone whom people were drawn to naturally. Her tight-knit family was the foundation of her life. They had an unbreakable bond, one that was founded on trust, love, and unconditional support. She had a bright future ahead of her, but all of that changed when she met Leon Jacob. Leon came to her hotel as a permanent guest, identifying himself as a transplant surgeon who was associated with the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. He was confident from the time he came up to Meghan. He was straightforward, assertive, and charming. His smile was winning, his language measured. When he invited her out, she was hesitant initially, but there was something in him that appealed to her. Their first date was like a scene from a movie. Leon paid Meghan his full attention, lavished her with compliments, and treated her with care that she had never known before. He was so intent on me whenever we went out, Meghan remembered later. He did things that were over the top, putting in details that most men would not even consider. With each passing month, their relationship grew stronger.
He was so focused on me anytime we went out. He definitely went out of his way to do things that were extravagant. A lot of times men don't put that much detail into things, and he did.
Meghan was swept up in the world of Leon, a world with great gestures and hushed assurances of a future together. She felt like she had found someone amazing, someone who really knew her. For the first time in many years, she felt she was a part of something amazing. But then one day, Leon revealed surprising news. He had been offered an unbelievable opportunity in Texas. He said he had a virtually certain job at Houston's elite Methodist hospital. It was an opportunity to begin anew, to construct a new life together. He wanted Meghan to accompany him. Initially, Meghan was thrilled. It was a major move, but the prospect of a new adventure with Leon was exciting. Meghan has all that in Pittsburgh, a successful career she toiled to establish, a loving family, good friends, and the strong roots she established over time. Her life is stable, rewarding, and secure. But when Leon Jacob is offered what seems like an incredible opportunity to complete his medical residency in Houston, everything changes. The choice is difficult, but Meghan ultimately decides to follow him, leaving behind everything she's ever known. She believes in their relationship, in the life they could build together, and doesn't want to stand in the way of Leon's future.
I loved being with Leon. We had a nice life here. I got a job about 10 days after moving here. I'm starting to make new friends here. His mother had this pool, and on the weekends we spent time there, and his brother came over, and even though I left my family in Pittsburgh, I had this new family.
So, with a mix of excitement and apprehension, she packs up her life and moves to Texas, unaware of the nightmare that awaits her. "I loved being with Leon," she later recalls. "We had a nice life here. I got a job about 10 days after moving. I was starting to make new friends. His mother had a pool, and we spent weekends there with his brother. Even though I left my family in Pittsburgh, I had this new family. At first, life in Houston seems promising. Meghan adjusts well, finds a good job, and even adopts a puppy with Leon. They settle into their new home, and despite the drastic changes, she feels like things are falling into place. But soon, cracks begin to form. Leon had assured her that he had a secure residency lined up at a prestigious hospital. However, as the months pass, it becomes clear that those were just empty promises. Meghan finds herself carrying the financial burden alone, working long hours while Leon spends his days at home, unemployed and drinking. He insists that he's looking for work, but his actions don't match his words. As time goes on, Meghan begins to realize that Leon isn't the man he pretended to be.
Leon wasn't doing the job that he said he was here to do and that he trained for years to do.
By January 12, 2017, Meghan has reached a breaking point. After a grueling 10-hour shift at work, she returns to their apartment, exhausted, only to find the place in complete disarray. Clothes are strewn across the floor, dirty dishes pile up in the sink, and the air is thick with the stale scent of neglect. Frustrated, she confronts Leon. "You were here all day and this just doesn't seem fair," she tells him. That's when everything changes. The charming, attentive man she fell in love with disappears in an instant, replaced by someone she doesn't recognize. Leon's face darkens with anger, his voice rising as he hurls insults at her. Before she can fully comprehend what's happening, he storms into their bedroom, yanking her clothes from the closet and throwing them onto the balcony. Meghan stands frozen, shocked, trying to make sense of the sudden outburst, but Leon isn't done. He picks up a cup of tobacco spit and hurls it across the room, its contents splattering over the furniture, the walls, and Meghan herself.
It was not who I thought he was.
"It was not who I thought he was," she later says. This isn't just an argument, it's a transformation. The man she thought she loved has become a stranger, and in that moment, she knows she has to leave. Without hesitation, Meghan grabs a bag and begins stuffing in whatever she can. She doesn't have a plan, only the instinct to escape. But as she moves toward the door, Leon blocks her path. His hands grip her, preventing her from leaving. Meghan fights back, struggling against him, her heart pounding. She screams, hoping that the neighbors downstairs will hear her and call the police.
I was trying to scream and trying to make as much noise as possible so that the people downstairs would call the police.
But before she can break free, Leon's hand comes down hard across her face. Adrenaline surges through her. This isn't just an argument, it's survival. With everything she has, Meghan shoves him away, landing a sharp elbow to his side. The impact creates just enough space for her to slip past him. She bolts out the door, racing down the hallway, clutching their dog in her arms. But Leon isn't far behind. As she reaches her car, Leon grabs the door handle, yanking at it violently. "If you don't give me the dog, I'm gonna punch in your window," he screams. Before Meghan can react, he pries the dog from her arms. She tries to fight for it, but she knows she has to pick her battles.
He's pulling on the car door. I'm pulling on the car door, and he was like, "If you don't give me the dog, I'm gonna punch you in the window."
If she stays, things will only get worse. With no other choice, she speeds away, finally escaping. For now. Shaken and overwhelmed, Meghan drives straight to a coworker's house. Her friend answers the door and immediately sees the fear on Meghan's face. Her face was blotchy, marked, the friend recalls.
Her face was blotchy, marks and things like that around. She started crying. I closed the door, broke out tissues. She looked afraid and in disbelief that something like this happened to her.
She started crying. I closed the door and got tissues. She looked afraid, in disbelief that something like this happened to her. As they sit together, Meghan's phone buzzes relentlessly. Text after text, call after call, all from Leon. The messages are obsessive, pleading one moment and threatening the next. Meghan tries to ignore them, but the harassment doesn't stop.
It was just non-stop emails, phone calls.
Soon, emails start flooding in from an account ominously named Leon Loves Meghan. Days turn into weeks, and the situation only escalates. Leon begins stalking Meghan, lurking outside her workplace, following her around town. The obsession is unrelenting, and then she discovers something even more terrifying. He has drained their shared bank account, leaving her financially stranded. When she returns to their apartment to collect her belongings, she finds it completely empty. Every piece of furniture, every trace of her presence is gone. With nowhere else to turn, Meghan goes to the police. She files for an emergency protective order and presses assault charges, hoping the law will shield her from Leon's growing fixation. "I did file criminal charges for assault on a family member," she later explains. "I provided the police with photos I had taken. I thought I saved myself from the situation by contacting the police, but it didn't stop him."
I did file criminal charges for assault on a family member. I did provide the police with photos I'd taken. I thought I saved myself from the situation by contacting the police, but it didn't stop him.
I think the longer that things went on, the more frantic and the scarier he got. Meghan had every right to be scared for her life.
I felt like I couldn't get away from Leon and stop wasn't something that he could comprehend.
The longer things went on, the more frantic and the scarier he got. She is right to be afraid. Leon's behavior only becomes more erratic. He ignores the protective order, showing up at her workplace so often that the hotel is forced to ban him from the property. But that doesn't stop him. One day, Meghan and a coworker step outside only to find Leon hiding in the bushes. We walk outside and see him standing there behind a bush, like he's invisible, the coworker recalls. I just remember the first words out of my mouth were, "Do you know we can see you?"
We walk outside and see him standing there behind a bush like you're invisible. I just remember the first words coming out of my mouth were, "Do you know we can see you?"
Meghan's coworker calls the police, and finally, in mid-February of 2017, Leon is arrested and charged with stalking, a felony offense. For the first time in weeks, Meghan feels a small sense of relief.
I kind of had a sense of relief for the first time that I could just live normally, at least for a day or so.
I kind of had a sense of relief for the first time, she says, that I could just live normally, at least for a day or so. But the relief is short-lived. Despite the severity of the charges, Leon isn't held for long. He is released on a $75,000 bond, free to walk the streets once again. But what Meghan doesn't know is that Leon didn't pay his own bond. Someone named Valerie McDaniel did. While Meghan was desperately trying to escape his relentless harassment, Leon had already moved on to his next target, Valerie. What Valerie didn't know was that Leon's life was already crumbling. He was unemployed, estranged from his family, and struggling financially. With no job and no stable income, he couldn't even afford rent. But Valerie, a recently divorced woman locked in a bitter custody battle with her ex-husband, saw something in Leon. She sympathized with his so-called struggles, and when he fed her lies about his past, she believed him. She understood his resentment toward his ex and, without hesitation, covered his $75,000 bond, giving him another chance at freedom. Despite having Valerie in his life, Leon's obsession with Meghan didn't wane. If anything, it intensified. Meghan wasn't just an ex-girlfriend to him. She was an obstacle, standing between him and the life he believed he was meant to have. His past was filled with skeletons, restraining orders, domestic violence charges, and failed professional endeavors. The truth was, Leon wasn't the ambitious doctor he claimed to be. His medical career had already ended in disgrace after multiple residency terminations due to incompetence and misconduct. He wasn't even licensed to practice. A guilty verdict in Meghan's case would permanently destroy any hope of ever becoming a doctor, and for Leon, that was unacceptable. If Meghan were gone, the charges would disappear. He could finally move on, and in his twisted mind, that meant she had to die.
The longer these charges lingered, the more concerned that Leon was about his reputation.
By February 23rd, 2017, Meghan was exhausted. The constant texts, emails, and phone calls hadn't stopped. She knew Leon was out on bail, but she had no idea how much danger she was truly in. Leon had already started putting his plan into motion. He had gathered $5,000 in cash, 2 Rolex watches, and his laptop before reaching out to a man who went by the name Zach, a former U.S. soldier turned hitman. They arranged to meet at a local Olive Garden in Houston to finalize the details. But when Leon showed up, he wasn't alone. He had brought Valerie with him. To Meghan, Valerie was just another woman Leon had manipulated. But to Valerie, Leon was the answer to her problems. She had her own request for Zach. She wanted her ex-husband, Mac, dead. The hitman listened carefully as they laid out their plan. Valerie explained that her ex-husband had been making her life miserable, and she wanted him gone. Zach told her the price, $10,000. She wrote Mac's name and address on a napkin and handed over her wedding ring as a down payment. Then, it was Leon's turn. He wanted Meghan kidnapped and injected with a fatal dose of potassium chloride. It would be clean, untraceable, and, in his mind, foolproof. The plan was set. A double homicide murder for hire, with Valerie and Leon both desperate to rid themselves of their respective problems. 2 days later,
Leon Jacob seemed like a very driven person about this. And when a person's very driven and they've got a goal in mind and they won't stop till they reach it, it makes them extremely dangerous.
On March 9th, 2017, Zach arrived at Valerie and Leon's apartment with chilling news. He told them it was done. Mac was dead. To prove it, he handed them staged photographs of a crime scene, depicting what appeared to be a robbery gone wrong. Valerie was visibly relieved. With Mac gone, her custody battle would be over, but there was still one more target left. Later that night, Leon received another set of photos, this time showing Meghan tied to a chair, duct tape covering her mouth. His phone buzzed with a message.
I sent you something. Did you receive?
Yeah, sir.
Well, right now, we got her. Yeah, she's gagged and tied up and everything, but she's not cooperating.
It doesn't matter. You kind of have to do it no matter your way.
The job was almost done. By midnight, he would finally be free of her. Leon had no idea that everything was a lie. The hitman he had hired, the one he believed would kill Meghan, was not who he said he was. Zach had gone to the police the moment he realized Leon was serious. From that moment on, authorities had been working behind the scenes to gather evidence and build an airtight case. Murder-for-hire cases are notoriously difficult to prosecute. There are no physical weapons, no DNA, and no direct acts of violence. A guilty verdict required proof that Leon not only wanted Meghan dead, but that he took deliberate steps to make it happen. With Zach's cooperation, investigators began recording phone calls, collecting every word as Leon detailed his intent. But that wasn't enough. They needed to catch him in the act. Meghan, working with law enforcement, orchestrated the March 7th meeting at the Olive Garden. What Leon didn't know was that the entire conversation was being recorded. Hidden cameras and microphones were placed strategically around the restaurant, and undercover officers were stationed nearby in case things turned violent. Everything he said, every detail of his plan, was captured. He even made a cash payment to seal the deal. Just when it seemed like Leon had dug himself into the deepest hole imaginable, Valerie made things even worse. She handed over her wedding ring as payment for Mac's murder, making it clear she was just as involved as Leon. This was exactly what police needed, proof of their willingness to pay for murder. But they weren't done yet. A jury could still find a way to dismiss the case. To make sure Leon and Valerie had no way out, investigators needed to go a step further. They needed to make them believe the murders had really happened. That was when law enforcement came up with a bold idea: staging the crime scenes. They would make Leon and Valerie think their plan had worked, forcing them to react. Their real-time responses would serve as the final piece of evidence, solidifying their guilt. The second phase of the operation began with Mac, Valerie's ex-husband, working with Houston police to fake his own death.
Hello?
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, good. Hey, listen, I'm gonna set up a meeting with you tomorrow so we can finish this, okay?
Okay.
Are you asking me how I would do it? Take his wallet, take his phone. They'll think he was a robber.
Leon knew what dead bodies looked like because he had medical training. That's what made the deception so crucial. Investigators had to make the staged crime scenes as realistic as possible. For Mac's supposed murder, they orchestrated a fake carjacking, positioning him slumped over his steering wheel with simulated gunshot wounds. Every detail had to be convincing. Any sign of deception, and Leon might suspect something was off. The entire operation relied on him believing these images were real.
Those stakes were high because if Leon caught on that those photos were not real, our whole investigation was down the drain.
If he didn't, the case investigators had built so carefully would collapse. A few hours later, it was Meghan's turn. Her staged murder had to look even more authentic. Investigators chose an abandoned warehouse just outside Houston as the setting. The plan was simple: make it appear as though she had been kidnapped and executed. The fake hitman called Leon, keeping him engaged while the officers worked on the crucial part.
Some people wanted to just duct tape her lips, and I said, no, we're gonna do this like we're real killers. This needs to look real, it needs to look legit.
They zip tied my arms and my legs. They wrapped my head up in duct tape. And at that point, I was just, it was awful. And I really thought, like, what if this really happened? What if I was really in this warehouse like this?
Tears were flowing, and she just broke down. You could see the emotional toll that it was taking.
Capturing the photos, These images had to be disturbingly real. If Leon had any doubts, the entire case would crumble. Some officers suggested just duct taping her mouth, but others argued that wasn't enough. If they were going to do this, it had to look like the work of real killers. They zip-tied my arms and legs, Meghan later recalled. They wrapped my head in duct tape, and in that moment, I thought, what if this was real? What if I was really trapped in this warehouse, waiting to die? The fear in her eyes was genuine, the tears uncontrollable. Her emotional breakdown only added to the realism of the scene.
Hello? Leon, we need to meet in person. Not on the phone, yeah.
You know, I worry about the being in person stuff because I worry about that I'm being set up here too.
Okay, well, you need to understand, from my side, I'm worrying about being f***ed over the phone. That's how people get caught on the phone.
The undercover officer snapped the photos and sent them to Leon. This was his final chance to back out, to call off the hit. But instead of hesitating, he doubled down. He confirmed the order. Meghan was to be killed. That was all the evidence police needed to move forward. With Leon's intentions confirmed,
if I needed to be rescued or something went wrong, it would take some time for my extraction team to reach me. But I wasn't going to stop this investigation just because he refused to meet me somewhere in public. I'm here. Okay. Good. Yeah, good. From there, we go up the 7 floors and we get to the condo.
Bye, sweetie.
Valerie emerges from the back bedroom and she greets me.
We'll just put the cell phones down and talk outside.
the next phase of the operation was set in motion. The undercover officer arranged to meet him in person to deliver proof of Meghan's death and collect payment. The case against Leon Jacob reached a critical moment when an undercover officer met him at his condo to finalize the murder-for-hire plot. The meeting was risky. If Leon became suspicious, the officer's safety would be in jeopardy. As they moved to the balcony, the officer presented staged photos of Meghan's supposed murder. Leon studied them, then suddenly tensed. He grabbed the officer's chest, a moment of sheer danger. Thinking fast, the officer turned suspicion on Leon, asking if he was wearing a wire. Leon lifted his shirt, proving he wasn't. The tension broke.
What's going on?
He needs to talk to you.
I'm afraid we have some bad news. Her ex-husband's been right now we're going to read you your rights. They both of them have been arrested. The solicitation got from murder. Why? This person murder.
And moments later, he handed over $1,800, the final proof of his intent to have Meghan killed. With the case airtight, police moved to arrest Leon and his girlfriend, Valerie McDaniel. When officers arrived at Valerie's apartment, her ex-husband was already there to take custody of their daughter. In a heartbreaking twist, as Valerie stood in handcuffs, her child was carried past her. She had planned a murder to gain full custody, but lost everything instead. Leon was denied bail due to his history of stalking, while Valerie, with no prior record, was released on a $50,000 bond. Just a week later, unable to face trial, she jumped from her 7th-floor apartment, ending her life. With Valerie gone, Leon faced trial alone. Prosecutors meticulously built their case, with the most damning evidence being the undercover recordings. The trial began on March 20th, 2018, drawing a packed courtroom. The most powerful testimony came from Meghan herself. She confronted Leon, determined to ensure he never harmed anyone again. After only an hour and 15 minutes of deliberation, the jury found Leon guilty of solicitation of capital murder. He was sentenced to life in prison, with eligibility for parole only after 30 years. For Meghan, it was justice. She had endured financial devastation, emotional trauma, and the terrifying reality that she was nearly murdered. But she stood strong, delivering a final message to Leon. "While you sit in jail, I hope you think of me, the girl you called poor and uneducated, because it's because of me that you'll be in prison for life." Meghan had survived, outsmarted her would-be killer, and reclaimed her life. No longer afraid, she used her experience to advocate for domestic violence victims, proving that even after tragedy, survival and justice are possible. That's all for this video. We hope you have found this video informative and interesting. What are your thoughts about this case? Let us know in the comments section. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon for more interesting videos like this. Thank you for watching our video.